Let's be real, we all need to take a break from alcohol. Luckily, Athletic Brewing offers award-winning, great-tasting NA beers for any occasion. Take a break from alcohol with something that tastes great, from their easy-drinking Athletic Light to something a bit more hoppy with Free Wave, or even something dark and bold like All Out. Try Athletic Brewing today by going to unitedwedrink.com/athletic and enjoy free shipping on all orders over $50. That's unitedwedrink.com/athletic. Athletic Brewing, beer fit for all times. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, co-workers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour, more like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the United We Drink podcast right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mike Urevich, and that's all I got today. I'm really losing it on those things. I should just stop doing that, right? Kevin and Tim, no one's bailing me out on that, so thank you.
Leaving you out to dry.
Yeah, I do need to dry off. Guys, so this is going to be a weird episode, I think, because
It's going to get really weird in about 30 minutes for me.
this is the point, well, after we usually have a little bit of banter, this is the point where we normally ask what you're drinking, and what we're drinking tonight is a little bit different than what we normally do, because I think we're all drinking THC seltzers, because we wanted to talk about this on the show today. So I will start off by saying I am having from a company called Cann, Cann, their grapefruit rosemary tonic. This is a low dose THC drink. It's only 2 milligrams of THC and 4 milligrams of CBD in it in an 8-ounce can. I'm drinking it over ice. I like it on that. I've had this before, by the way. But
so you might be asleep by the end of the podcast.
Possibly.
Okay.
It does help me fall asleep, but
Yeah,
we'll get to that in a little bit. Tim, what are you having?
I'm going with Trail Magic, which is a Minneapolis brand, but I don't know who actually produces it. It's not like a brewery, Indeed actually kind of has a couple of awesome things because they have like their standard THC, and then they call it a THC sports drink, and it's got caffeine in it as well. So this is one where it's a Minneapolis brand. I don't know who's producing it. I don't think they have their own. I'm sure it's contract brewed somewhere. But yeah, it's Trail Magic. Are you guys familiar with Trail Magic? Like the concept of Trail Magic? So you're drinking Trail Magic. Okay. So the idea is in what is going on? Why do I have two different whatever?
Just so you know, it's made by Minneapolis Cider Company.
Oh, is that who it is? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I did not know that. But Trail Magic as like a backpacking term is a
You get high and you walk through the woods?
No, usually what it means. Oh, so like if you go out there and someone left behind like a cache of water bottles in the woods, or someone left behind,
it's like a paying it forward type of thing.
Yeah, so that really happens a lot in the backpacking community. And so when you stumble upon someone who left you a freeze-dried meal in a bear box, that's called Trail Magic. And since obviously, we're a state with a Superior Hiking Trail and the Boundary Waters and all of that, it's kind of an important thing. So I really like it just because I think it's a very clever name. But I am drinking the lime margarita, which is a 10 milligram.
Ooh.
Okay.
I maybe have a little bit different experience with a lot of this than you guys do. So
Okay, so I'm gonna jump in here. I have the lime margarita Trail Magic. I bought a 12 pack, a mix pack, and this says 5 milligrams on it.
They do both. They
Okay, okay,
they do a
that's
5 milligram. So this one you'll
mm,
notice is like a little bit different can. So they do both a
Oh,
5
that's a
and three
lot of
milligram.
different of a can.
Yeah.
okay. So I have that, but so when you guys were talking about this on text and we decided to do this, I had to admit I had never had any of these before, and I'll get into the fact that I didn't really understand that these existed until just today. So I picked this up, but I also wanted to pick up another brand. So I also have a Flyers Sparkling Old Fashioned, which is also 5 milligrams. I am not going to be drinking all of this. I just wanted to try a couple of them so I had a good grasp. I also, because I'm a glutton for punishment, I also have a Nooner Pilsner from Sierra Nevada because I got the 24 pack from Costco and it with tumbler in it and everything. Yeah. And I had to be drinking this right now because this yes, there we go. This pack with tumbler and Nooner in it. I mean, what were the other two beers, Mike? There was a red IPA.
Flipside Red IPA and
Yeah.
Ruthless Rye.
Yeah. I mean, just gold. I mean, those are those beers are also good. So I'm drinking these and I'm liking the Trail Magic Lime Margarita so far. It's real tasty. The old fashioned from Flyers doesn't really taste much like an old fashioned to me, but it's relatively tasty. And yeah, by the end of this, if I am completely incoherent, then that will just be the end of a normal episode, but for completely different reasons.
So, um, yeah, that. This is kind of why I'm going with a low dose one because I have had some 5 milligram ones recently, and probably within 30 minutes, I am stoned out of my mind. As a person who does not partake in the pot very regularly. I just would catch myself like just smiling, and I'm like, why am I smiling? Like, oh yeah, because I am high. Um, but we had a sales rep, drop off 2 8 packs of different flavors at our tap room. They were like, "Hey, yeah, we sell them. If you guys want to carry them, here's some samples." Like, normally people don't drop off an entire pack, let alone two, as samples for a bar. But no one at the brewery wanted to try them, so I figured I would take them. From a brand called Mellow, and they had one weird thing that I've seen through most of these is a fruit and an herb in the
Hmm.
flavorings of them.
Yeah.
Like this one that I'm having is grapefruit and rosemary, and then
Yeah.
you'd see a different herb in there. And I'm not super big on like having herbs in like in a cocktail or anything like that. So that kind of threw me off. But these ones from Mellow were grapefruit was one and berry was another. And I thought they tasted great, especially the grapefruit one. Just like really just tasted like a citrusy soda of sorts or like a spindrift kinda.
The trend to do a fruit and an herb is by design.
Is it to cover up like pot like flavors?
I wouldn't say to cover up, but at least to like work with pot like
Okay,
flavors.
yeah.
You
To
know what I mean?
complement, yeah.
Right? I mean, because like a lot of people are even just doing like a THC hop water as well, right? Because that's going to have a lot of kind of overlap
Yeah.
in similarity.
So I have to point out, and thank you, by the way, for talking about why this is called Trail Magic, and it is a really cool name. I just like I love the idea as you read this can. It says, "So whether out on the trails or relaxing with good friends, sip slowly and enjoy Trail Magic." The idea of getting stoned and walking around in the woods, that seems safe.
So, okay, so here's the thing. So you guys, I take it neither of you guys are backpackers.
Not a backpacker, but I like hiking.
Well, hiking and camping are fine, but like when you go on, like even if you're gonna, so next summer I'm doing a 3 night lollipop loop hike. I'm gonna be out there with a couple of friends. We don't have a super aggressive hike. The idea being that if you do it in 3 nights, you can get to camp early, set up camp, and relax for a while. it's a lot easier to carry around gummies than it is booze. And I'm not saying that I need either of them to have a good time, but if you're out with a couple of your friends sitting around a campfire or even just sitting around camp because you got a belly full of your freeze dried meal or whatever, and you want to relax, um, taking a gummy is a great way to kind of get that similar experience without drinking because plenty of people also go drinking in the backcountry, but there's a weight penalty to all of that.
I don't doubt that, and that's very logical. But just in general, being intoxicated any way, shape, or form, and I guilty as charged. I really don't even know what backpacking means. I mean, I know what a backpack is. I know what ing being added to something means that you're participating in something. But with that all being said, even going out, I always laugh when my family used to camp a little bit in the Rifle River in Michigan when I was growing up, and the whole family would go. And my mom and my aunts and uncles would get bombed. I mean, they
Sure.
would just get shit faced, and you're next to a fire. You gotta put up tents. There's animals out there. I got stung by a hive of bees. I don't know how that's relevant, but it happened. And just the idea that you're out in nature just getting smashed in general just seems like not the best thing to be promoting. Not
It
that you
is
can't do it and
no,
not that it's not fun.
certainly, but also the nice thing, like with car camping, right, which is what you're talking about. It's like you're just going into your site,
Yeah.
or maybe doing a little hiking, but not a big deal. But like with backpacking, it's like you go to the trailhead, you walk 20 miles to your first campsite, you walk 15 miles to your next campsite, and so literally everything that you have to eat, drink, whatever, there's not a cooler, there's not something that's sitting in the trunk of Aunt Karen's car. It's everything that I have to eat, drink, whatever. I carry a water filter because the only way I'm going to continue to have water is to filter just natural springs. Those types of things. And that's where, I'll maybe bring a couple airline bottles of whiskey and a powdered cider mix. So I can have one of those around the campfire. But the reality is there's always a weight penalty, and liquid is not light
I
when you
get
get
it.
into any volume, and so that's where
Powdered cider mix? Like
yeah,
is that like a non-alcoholic
it's a,
cider?
it's a non-alcoholic one, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so non-alcoholic. So I'll get an airline bottle of Jameson and a non-alcoholic cider powdered mix, and then I can make my
So
Jameson
you mix that
and
straight
cider.
in with just the whiskey, or do you add some water into
Oh
that?
no, I add the water.
Okay,
Basically,
so you rehydrate it and then mix it with the okay.
yeah. So I'm still using my tiny little BRS stove or fire pit or whatever to heat water and mix and make a hot cider with the powdered cider mix, and then adding in the airline bottle of whiskey on top of that. So I'm still having a
I
little bit of that.
I have a question, Tim. What's it like to be a person who does things? Because I don't do things so much as not do things. Is it
you
is it
know,
good? Is it
yeah.
like
I
good for
mean,
your health?
like having hobbies, and I don't get out nearly as much as I would like to.
What are the dangers in hiking up there? Like down here we have alligators.
Yeah, yeah. We
And
don't
like
have
when I
those.
was in North Carolina, you got bears, you have
Yeah,
bobcats, wolves.
yeah. I
What's
mean, we've got bears, we've got mountain lions. If you get really up north, you've got moose. I've never seen a moose in the wild here. I've only seen a moose in the wild up in Alaska or in Canada. I've not seen them here, but I do know that they exist here. Bears, they're all black bears, so they're probably more afraid of you than you are of them, but you still have to kind of you want to keep your food away. A lot of people do bear bags. I hate bear bags, but I also hate the weight of a bear canister. But a bear canister can double as a seat when I get to camp. So maybe I'll take the 2 pound weight penalty to do it. I do always try to keep like a couple of rocks like in my pocket or like my hip belt pocket, just in case I do run into mountain lion or wildcats, just to kind of help ward it off. I don't I don't super love, like, some nights I really just want to go out solo, right? Uh, but 2 nights solo is about all I can stand. One night I went out to state park out west, and so as I'm hiking in, I run into like a national forest, whatever they forest ranger, whatever type of guy, and I talked to him briefly. He's like, "No, you're the only one who is here right now." I said, "What do you mean here?" He goes, "In the entire state park, I just drove around it. You're the only person I saw." And I was like, "Wow, that's really alone." And so I got to, like, a place where I could set up camp and everything, and I could, luckily I could make a fire. You can usually find fire. A lot of the Minnesota dispersed camping things, as long as you find downed wood, you can make a fire. And I'm sitting there and I'm not really kind of doing anything. And I finally decide, like, hey, I didn't really research the state park. And I get on there, and the state park I was at was most famously known because a few years back, a couple of guys from a prison in South Dakota escaped and killed someone in the state park. So now suddenly I realize I'm in the state park all by myself. So that, yes, being by myself is not necessarily fun.
I would absolutely. So I'm not much of a gun guy, but I own a gun, and I would definitely bring. I don't know if it's legal to, but I would definitely have my gun on me if I if I was alone in the woods. I've seen too many slasher movies.
Well, the worst thing about it is like 4 in the morning. This flock of wild turkeys came through, and they're rustling up against my tent. So I'm jostled awake at 4 in the morning by my tent shaking. After barely being able to get to sleep, knowing that serial killers might be in the neighborhood. And so that I'm like zipping out and trying to look outside my tent to just see like 20 turkeys all around me.
Killer turkeys from Western Minnesota.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
trauma film. Uh,
So, getting back to talking about the THC drinks, right? And
What?
I have to put this out there because I feel like an idiot, which is not new. But I mentioned kind of casually that I didn't know these existed till today, and that's true. I've heard about these, but for whatever reason, I've never drank one. My brain has never really connected the fact, because I remember I asked you off air, Mike, but what was the beer that they were using? The infusion for like
Oh, breweries were using terpenes.
terpenes. So when I heard about the terpene thing in beer and tried one or two of some of the most ungodly bad beverages I've ever had in my life, and having brewers like go, "Here, you got to try this. This is a terpene beer. Isn't it amazing?" And I'm like, "No, that's gross and poorly made." I kind of just shut that all off. I'd be contacted by companies that want me to sell me terpenes, and I'm like, I'm not interested in it. This is a fad. This is garbage. Not interested. When these came out, I just thought it was the same thing for whatever reason. I heard THC, but I did not think that it had anything to do, it could get you stoned. And finding this out today blew my mind. Florida, the fact that Florida, it's not legal, it's not legal to use marijuana for recreational use. And the fact that these are sold in stores, I mean, dumbfounded.
So I have a couple things. Yeah, I didn't realize that you guys could get them until Mike had told me the other day, because I didn't think it was available for recreational use. But your guys is for being in the most southeast thing, you guys live in the Wild West when it comes to a lot of these things. So first of all, terpenes, are in hops too, right? Like
Terpenes are in all plants, like
yeah,
basically.
right.
But it was
Well, and hops and weed are
cousins.
very
They
close
always say,
cousins. Yeah.
The terpenes
okay.
thing was people were getting marijuana terpenes that have
Okay,
like
specifically. Okay.
That's what
the
I'm talking about,
aromas
marijuana.
of
Yeah.
certain strains of marijuana, and they were putting them into their beer, and the federal government was like, no, you can't do that because it's coming from marijuana. Marijuana is federally illegal. You can't be doing that.
Yeah, years ago, somebody got into trouble. They weren't shut down, but they were doing a CBD beer, which technically is federally illegal since there's no psychoactive component to that. But it becomes and so they were really just trying to talk about it as to like use the right language type of thing. And you still can't mix, alcohol and THC in any beverage anywhere. Which is my biggest fear, frankly, is that there's going to be some idiot that racks beer onto a tank that had THC in it without it being cleaned, or vice versa.
That's interesting. Yeah, never thought about that.
Yeah, that's the risk that I worry about, is that someone is gonna accidentally rack it into the wrong tank, and it's gonna ruin the fun for all of us.
And you think that's just going to be because they're going to get caught doing that? I mean, all three of us right now are drinking some form of alcohol along with our THC product. So I mean,
You have to send the THC out for testing, and so that would be what I would be worried about.
got you. Okay.
You know what I mean? Is that someone flags this as THC, but it also has alcohol, and I don't know what the labs are specifically obligated for. But I would be concerned that at some point it's going to get flagged that some idiot racked the THC into something that had beer in there, and there's just enough residual alcohol. Or like, a lot of places that do like, 3 turns into the same tank,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they have 2 turns of a beer in a tank, and then they rack over a THC, or they forgot that they didn't completely empty out that bright tank, and they put, 40 barrels of THC onto 20 barrels of beer, and there's going to be some residual, or especially with seltzer, right? I might be doing a THC seltzer and a hard seltzer. So
Yeah.
nothing in that sight glass on that bright tank is going to tell me,
Right.
oh, no. Like, it'd be one thing, like, if I was an idiot and I racked over a clear THC seltzer on top of, like, an IPA that I can see at the sight glass. But if I've got seltzer and hard seltzer and THC seltzer, I'm worried that those two are going to intermingle at some point, and we're going to get. I mean, there's a reason, like, if you run a brewery and distillery, you have to have a fence between the two, just to like clearly delineate these tanks are distiller, these tanks are brewer.
Yeah.
I at some point I'm worried that's going to happen, and it's probably the right thing to do, frankly. As much as I loathe all the excessive regulation, it's the best for the consumer. It's the best
Yeah.
it's the best for the brewer, frankly.
Yeah. So this stuff that we are having is, at least as far as I'm aware, is all Delta 9 THC.
Yep.
Which is derived from hemp.
Correct.
And so it's not where it becomes legal per se from the federal standpoint, because from what I'm reading, it is still technically illegal from the federal standpoint.
Correct. Although the Biden administration said, like, in year 1, that they would not prosecute anyone on it. That
Yeah.
they would instruct the DEA to not prosecute anyone. But yeah.
But it does contain the ability to have the effects of the marijuana version of THC, or like just like if you were using marijuana. And like I hadn't really thought much of these, other than that you were making them at you were making them at Unmapped too, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And at
Dashfire.
Dashfire, yeah. Until very recently. And I had a conversation a few months back with a friend of the show, Ed Roberts. He's an upper guy at Total Wine down here, and he was talking about how Minnesota is just like killing it with THC seltzers, and he was seeing like a little bit of that coming down here. And Tim, could you tell us a little bit about how these are made?
Well, let me go back and tell you a little bit about how marijuana accidentally got legalized in Minnesota. It literally got
Is
like
Jesse Ventura involved in this?
no, although he would be very proud of it. No, this was literally that. This had been something that had been, it's like Delta 8, right? Non-psychoactive THC, and hemp products were allowed. And they were updating the farm bill, and a Democrat kind of snuck this into the updated bill, and it passed. And a bunch of Republicans complained that they never read the bill, and we all just kind of went, I mean, that's on you, dude. And like, well, there's not enough time to read these things. I'm like, yeah, so that's a problem of government. That doesn't mean that you get to say you don't get to call a mulligan on a law that you voted yes on. So literally, we accidentally legalized it. Now that didn't mean that we necessarily legalized everything, but we're working on that. We're working on getting our actual first like real dispensaries and all of that. But what it did mean is that things like edibles and THC seltzers became legal, and it literally a lot of other states when they went through a legalization process meant, oh, you have to show this ID, or it has to get scanned, or it has to be in a separate room, or it has to be whatever. But like all the ones around here, they're just in that brewery cooler where you go buy a 4-pack of 16-ounce cans to go of beer. I can only sell you, what is it? It's only like 2 4-packs of beer, but I can sell you an entire case of THC seltzer. Like it literally is kind of the Wild West because there were restrictions on what you could sell as to go beer in a brewery.
That's still the case. You can only sell 2
Yeah.
4-packs to go.
I don't
It
remember
used
what.
to be way more restrictive, right?
Yeah, I don't remember what the exact ounces is right now. It might be 128 ounces. I don't remember what it is, but the bottom line is it's not. No, it isn't. It was no, maybe it
Are
was
you
like
allowed to
260.
walk out the door and come back in and buy more?
I mean, by the letter of the law, not technically no, but by the spirit of the law, like
Okay,
that's completely unenforceable, right?
because like in Pennsylvania, grocery stores that sell beer and wine and like beer shops, like they can sell you the equivalent of roughly 2 6-packs per transaction. So you can go outside, put it in your car, come back in and buy more, and it's legal, but it has to be per transaction.
Yeah,
So,
I think the way it is written isn't per transaction. I think it's per customer per day. But again, I don't know how terribly enforceable that is. And if you've
yeah.
got 2 different credit card numbers, that's going to be enough to. I don't remember exactly how that law is written for beer. But as far as for THC, yeah, man, if you want to come in and buy 2 cases of it from a brewery, go nuts. Right, and so like it became kind of the Wild West, and I'm frankly glad that like now, you know, as they've gone through it, they're starting to mature and they're starting to put more regulations in place because literally it was just anybody can do anything. You know, a lot of places have it on tap at the brewery. Other places, their insurance says no, you can't have it on tap. Other municipalities within the Twin Cities say no, you can't have it on tap. So that's all over the place. Like the closest brewery to me that I go to all the time, you go up if you order a THC, they say, okay, you haven't had any beer, just so you know, you can have both beer and THC at the same time. But that's up to servers to enforce necessarily or to pay attention. Everyone's got a loophole around that, right? I could just go to a different server than I went the last time. But
Yeah.
as long as I'm not running a tab. But yeah, and so we all kind of backed into this, and so it's been kind of the Wild West, and we're now kind of all getting into this. But there are breweries that literally the only reason their lights are still on is because of THC seltzer. And I mean, one thing is you produce it all in a day, right? From the time I dosed the thing to the time that tank was empty and in cans, it was the same day. it comes as an emulsion, right? So none of the stuff is technically water soluble, but it's an emulsion to get to be as water soluble as possible. So what we always did is we would always have, a tank full of deaerated carbonated water. Um, and then we would set up a recirc loop, and we would dose in the THC. It comes in a little vial that looks like milk. Don't put it in the same fridge where you're putting your coffee creamer, because someone's going to have a miserable day. If they accidentally dose their coffee with it, because a little bit goes a long way with this stuff. But it's basically just it looks like milk. So dose in the flavor, dose in the THC, recircuit for a little bit, and now you've got that deaerated carbonated water mixed with this stuff, and then you go right to the canning line. So you don't give it a chance to kind of separate, so it stays as homogeneous as possible, and you can
What
it.
what kind of dosing rate was it? Like,
I don't remember. It depended on which concentrate you got, but it was literally like,
couple milliliters?
yeah, it was like 2 milliliters for 5 barrels, maybe something like that. Not even that. A shot.
Yeah,
Uh,
we use some hop oils on a couple of our IPAs that we send in during transfer to Bright. Like in line with it, like we and I gotta say, like I know that it's probably a different formula now than when I was using it, because they had just created a water soluble version of it. Prior, we had to emulsify it. Uh, but it was like, yeah, maybe like 10 milliliters for a 20 barrel batch of IPA.
yeah, it really is nothing. A little bit goes a long way.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that's interesting about it for us is the way that it was allowed was only 5 milligrams per serving,
Mhm.
and no more than 50 milligrams in a single package. But nothing dictates serving size. So if you want to have 50 milligrams in an 8-ounce can, you can. You just have to do the math to say how many servings that can has. Like this Trail Magic that I have, that's 10 milligrams. I mean, Kevin, yours probably says that a serving size is 1 serving per container. A serving is 1 can, right? Yeah, mine says two
Correct.
servings.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine says 2 servings per container. Serving size half a can.
My low dose one is is two
Yeah,
servings
yeah.
for an 8-ounce can.
Yeah, and so for us, like I said, there have literally been places that have done 8-ounce cans with 50 milligrams, because the only thing is that a serving is 5 milligrams, and the maximum milligrams you can have per
10, 10
container is 50.
servings in a 8-ounce can.
Like you could literally serve a 50 milligram thimble as long as you did the math to say what a serving size is. I don't know if they're working on that or getting that fixed, but that's I get literally like when this first happened. Um, friends of mine over at Wooden Ship, they did an 8-ounce 50 milligram can, so perfectly legal.
How did you do flavorings in them?
So I will tell you, and I said this at the time, so I have no problem saying this on air. Uh, on Maps flavoring sucked. It was literally just Amaretti flavorings.
Okay.
And it was all way too weak. And everyone at the brewery was like, "Oh, I love how subtle it is." And I'm like, "That's not what our customers are. We need to quit pretending like our palate is what our customers want." Because the ones that sell really well here have bold flavors and unique flavors. Not they taste like a hint of black cherry.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't see theirs in liquor stores all that often. Um, I love those guys. I don't think they're doing that well, but at the same time, if they're making money, then who am I to judge? a lot of the ones that are really popular around down here do get a lot more creative in their flavors, and they don't just taste like weak White Claw. Um, some people are doing. I think there's something that says it has to be translucent, right? Like you can't like just basically put THC in a thing of orange juice. I don't remember exactly how it was. It was basically just like because you don't even have to carbonate it, right? You can just do
Yeah.
still water with THC. But there was something about it, and so some people are using like real fruit and real herbs, and a lot of people are doing other ones.
Yeah, the one that I have says contains 8% juice, and it is
Yeah,
like very looks like juice pouring it into a glass. It even has what looks like little bits of like grapefruit peel
yeah,
in it as well.
yeah. The thing too is that like the people are really doing it smart. So, uh, the lining on cans, that lining on the inside of aluminum cans, actually pulls that THC away, and so you actually, if you want to make a 5 milligram can, you shoot for over 5 milligrams, so that when it tests out at 5 milligrams. Now, like Fulton, what they did is they said, you know what, we're gonna do all of our THC in bottles because that doesn't happen in glass bottles, and
Hmm.
so you're getting 5 milligrams when you get 5 milligrams. And in the state of Minnesota, we have to have some way for people to look up the facts. So a lot of them, Kevin, there's probably a QR code on the back of your can,
Yeah,
right?
there is.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
the idea is that you can go look at the latest test results and say, hey, I'm actually getting this. So you have to send it out to, a lot of these 24-hour labs. Unmapped, I think ours was in Fargo that we would send it out to. And then we could go ahead and make sure that when they scan that goes to the latest test results that says, okay, it actually has this exact milligrams of THC and all of that. But uh, I'm glad they're doing that because it does require things to probably be a little bit more precise. But I mean, a lot of these, it's so new, right? We
Yeah.
barely have breweries that have competent chemists to even do ABV right, let
Hey,
alone.
most breweries don't even put date codes on their
Well,
cans,
yeah, exactly,
let alone a
exactly.
QR code to let you go to lab analysis.
Yeah, like that is required by the state is you have to do.
I think that
That.
that's an awesome thing to require. I I doubt that's a thing here because this one that I have. Oh wait, it does have a QR code.
They usually have a
And
QR code or a website. Now, now the tricky thing is that
yeah,
goes
for
to
lab results. Okay.
whatever lab result that batch was in. But if you're ordering, a pallet of cans with a QR code printed on the side,
Yeah.
do I necessarily know it was in this batch ties back? Because you literally have to send every single batch out for testing,
Wow.
and so I don't know how well people are able to tie this specific lab result to this specific can. I think it all works in
Well,
theory.
this one is a digitally printed can,
Okay.
so you can get small. Uh, I know small runs of that.
Sure. But even then, uh you know how it is, Mike. I didn't finish out this pallet. I'm not gonna go ahead and waste
Oh
the
yeah.
rest of my I'm not gonna waste the rest of my cans
It
before
also
I.
has two different stickers on it too. Like the the company name is a sticker, a label on it, and then it has a like the THC warning label is a sticker on it as well.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
go
I
to take
mean,
the stickers off and see
and
what's
people are
underneath.
continuing to put new things on there. But yeah, like I said, like you put that information on there, but like I said, no one is gonna throw away a half a pallet of cans
Yeah.
when they start their new canning run. Let's just be honest, right? So that's gonna be, and that's something that'll be interesting.
Well, listen, we all have our own experience with the regulations that the state has and how things change. I mean, simple stuff like taxes and stuff. Things are always changing.
Yeah,
Uh, but there's a certain aspect of any one of these regulations where it is like you want less, but you ask for more. Like if you make someone accountable in some way, shape, or form by sending off by batch, people are going to not adhere to those standards all the time, so you kind of over regulate something knowing that a lot of stuff's going to slip through. So I would imagine now my question is kind of leading to that is, we know in ABV you've got like a range. I think it's like what, 3.3.
0.3
I
Mike,
and
think
you
it's
either
probably
point
know.
direction.
three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can go either way. With this, is the testing obviously if you say 5 milligrams, but uh, you have to give them the information because it might not be 5. Is there any interplay where if you're like, oh, it's 5.5, now you can't put that out?
I don't remember what the range is, but there is a range. The things that make it different is it's not by volume, right? It's not a percentage. It's this can contains X milligrams. Like we don't say on a can of beer, it contains X ounces of alcohol. I get that we're doing that by percentage, but it becomes that like there's kind of like an average around all that stuff. B, if I make a tank of beer, my first can and my last can are going to be within the same tolerance. On this, it can vary widely. C, aside from like instances of hop creep, uh, there aren't things within a can where it's going to change potent. Like you're certainly not going to get less alcohol over time, whereas a can you're going to get less THC. Uh, and D, you don't. In most places, you don't have to put the ABV in a can.
Yeah.
You just have to make sure that if you put it on the can, you're right.
Yeah.
That's
You
interesting.
don't have to do it. Whereas
Yeah.
this,
Federal
you
government doesn't require ABV on
Really?
cans.
no, federal government does not require it. Some states do, some states don't. But the federal government says you don't have to put it on there. Look at like your average can of Bud Light. It actually does not put that on there. They just say that if you do, you have to be within a certain percentage.
I'm learning so many new things, and I'm going to learn more because I have another question.
Yeah.
So you said one, that the can absorbs some of the THC, and you said it changes over time. Is there a limit to the amount that it can absorb? Or, I mean, theoretically, if you had that can for 6 years, would you keep creeping down the entire time?
That is a good question. I would imagine there's a limit based on it's attracted to a lining and you have a finite amount of lining. I don't know where that is. I don't
Okay.
even know that we've necessarily done enough studies to
Hmm.
even definitively say that because it is such a new thing. It was a factor that kind of came to a lot of people's attention after the fact,
Hmm.
right? And I think probably it was maybe even just that people were like, "No, I dosed it at this rate. It's testing at this rate. What are the causes?" Like, I don't think it was necessarily that anyone went, "Oh, by the way, this is going to happen, so do it." It was more just
Sure.
yeah.
Well, the wild, wild west, right? We're learning
Yep.
things all the time. Okay, then
Yep.
the last thing is you mentioned that as you're circulating in the THC,
Yeah.
you want to circulate it and send it off because you want to make sure that it have a homogeneous blend. That tells me that something will fall out of solution if it sits too long, which leads me to ask, this can that I bought, if it had been sitting like this for days and days, is it possible that I don't have a homogeneous mix in here where if I drank the top of this, it would have less THC than if I drank the bottom of this?
My understanding, and I have not done all of the chemistry, but again, these are emulsions. They are by definition not water soluble, right? Like oil and water do not mix, right? Uh my understanding is that yes, you can have settling in cans. Now, how significant that is, I don't know, because it is an emulsion, so it does homogenize very well. I think the bigger thing is that you want to make sure on a grand scale that you're doing it in your tank, so you've got most of that ability. So every can should at least have 5 to 5.3 milligrams. But as far as settling in a can, yeah, probably. I would say probably you could probably drink the first half and not feel anything, and have the second half and be like, "Holy shit!"
That is so thank you for telling me that because I've tried these two, just very little of each one. But I've been in the situation before where I've like taken a gummy or taken half a gummy, like, oh yeah, I'm fine, and then you take the second half, and I'm dead. I've deceased. I'm no longer with the world of the living. But it would be interesting with this to go, I don't actually want 5 milligrams. I want 2.5. So me and my wife will share this, and I'm completely sober, and she's out of her mind. That would be a really interesting thing to happen.
Yeah, it's a question I've always had, and I don't know, maybe we've got a listener that is a lot more well versed on this than I am. But for the longest time, I always kind of thought, uh, should you store these things in your fridge upside down? I, because dude, there are a lot of places that do, a hazy IPA or a heavily fruited beer where they store their kegs upside down before they serve them. Because
Yeah.
things settle, right? Like gravity is like a fact of life.
Wait, what? Gravity's a fact of this is the fourth new thing that I've learned today.
Yeah, exactly. But
Okay.
Did an apple just fall on your head, Kevin?
And so no, I have wondered about that. Because no matter how like with a gummy, you can homogenize it to a point where that settles up, firms up, gelatinizes before it redistributes too much, right? This you don't ever have any of that settling. So I don't know. It is a question I don't have an answer to, and I have always suspected that yes, you are right. You'll get higher on the last half of the can than you will the first.
So this is the idea after you said that you think that all these should be stored upside down in your fridge. So we start a brand, the three of us. We make it so the labels are upside down. So you have to store the can, and that's the unique, quirky thing about this brand. We have to find some kind of special pack textile holder for the top
Yeah.
to make sure that they're correct. And there's their idea. Everyone's like, wait, why is that one upside down in the cooler? They pull it, they start drinking it, they fall in love with it. It's the quirky new thing, and everyone's imitating it. What do you guys think? You in?
Sold.
Put me down for $500. So
Thank you,
I was trying to do a little quick research on what is called line scalping.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff all over the place. There's not any exact numbers. There's been a lot of testing. There's one particular test that I see here to where one company tested like 2 to 3 different ones of their brands with the more common can liner and a newly developed can liner, and their original can liner saw less than 8% loss of potency over 12 weeks, where the new liner was less than 3% loss over the same period of time. But they've seen in some of those older can liners up to 85% loss of cannabinoid potency over 9 months on some of their products.
I mean,
Wow.
But
I think
apparently some of the canning companies are working on different liners for these types of beverages.
yeah. I mean, I think yeah. There are probably a lot more studies now than there were, 2-3 years ago when I was doing this. But at the same time, it's still research in its infancy, right? So
Yeah.
any one test is not necessarily accurate, or any 5 tests are not necessarily accurate. So
Yeah.
I think it is still very much a young science with this, because like I said, I'm certain it came out of people didn't say this would happen ahead of time, but more discovered it was happening and researched why it was happening. And I'm also convinced that you could send the same sample to 2 different labs and get 2 different results. I don't even know that we have clear, consistent testing standards. So, because it's been part of the problem is that it's been illegal for so long, and it's hard to get into real testing of something that is illegal.
Yeah, like you got not only are the companies that are making this like kind of working on the fly, but you have these labs that are like, oh, now we got to test this stuff that we've never tested before
Yeah.
on the fly. All right, we're all just learning as we go.
Yeah, right. And I'm sure there are some very world class drug labs
Yes, that
uh,
know what the hell they're
that know
doing.
what
Yeah.
they're doing, but the average lab that you're sending stuff out, especially if it's a lab that like used to do all your ABV testing and your IBU testing, I don't know that they necessarily know that they're doing everything the right way. That someone who like literally does Schedule 1 drugs, testing regularly.
So I am starting to feel this a little bit, and
How long did it?
just because there's a possibility that I'll be incoherent in several minutes. I didn't know if we were going to go into like the market about it and where we see it going or any of those questions, and I don't know that that's that interesting a conversation. But I did want to point out that as I'm going through the mental gymnastics of the fact that this thing exists and I didn't know about it 12 hours ago,
Mm.
uh, and I'm sipping this, I'm thinking about the way we consume alcohol and the way we consume this. And speaking my personal experience with alcohol, socially, it's being with friends, multiple beers, right? There's even on like the extreme end of beer, like I don't want to sit there and drink a 12% imperial stout bottle with my buddies. I want to drink like 6 pilsners,
Mhm.
right? Not drive afterwards, but I want, you know what I mean?
Yep.
That the social act of going to get another beer is ingrained in me. And I also drink, at home watching TV. And to me, it's trying multiple things in an evening. Oh, I've got the Nooner Pilsner and I've got the tumbler. I want to have one can of each. There's a repetition and a satisfaction in that when you're watching a baseball game, having multiple beers. This you're consuming, I mean, me as someone who doesn't take a lot of THC, I would be obliterated after one of these. I'm not going to go back and have multiple. Does
I,
that
I
cap the market? Does it change? Is it in danger of not being the thing that it could be because the social aspect is reduced?
so I have a lot of thoughts on that, but because one of the things that I hate about these is that I have to pee before I get high, I have to pee. So, Mike, share your thoughts, and I will be back quickly.
So I completely get what you mean here, Kevin, and as someone who has been actively cutting down on the amount of alcohol that I consume by having like dry days, and even on the days that I'm not, like trying to cut down on the amount that I have on those days, I'm looking at this segment as somewhere kind of in the same category as NA to me, because it is giving me something on my off days from alcohol that has flavor and actually has the some of the effects to go along with it, and not nearly the amount of calories as a beer does. Even NA beers, and most NA beers are still getting close to like 100
Good ones.
calories. Yeah. So I'm not looking at these in that way that you're thinking, because I don't think that it will ever replace that aspect for me. I'm looking at yeah, more as an NA offering of sorts that comes with some side effects, but is way less calories for me, and it is something that I'm only going to have myself one in an evening and be completely fine with. Tim, you're
And your
muted.
microphone, you're muted, the microphone.
Well, that's because I didn't think people needed to hear me pee. Um, no, so I will agree with you, Mike. There's a couple caveats I'll put onto this. One, these cost significantly more than beer,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you say, does that limit that market? Well, if I can make the same money per case, do I really right? Like, yeah, you're gonna have like six beers in a night, and you might have one or two of these. Well, I got the same amount of money from you, so you can't necessarily cover the customer as a clear. you're right. There are probably people that are just less likely to drink because they want to have more at a night.
I, Tim, I want you to continue, but the reason I'm interrupting is that I just want to be specific on what I was asking. I
Yeah.
wasn't even thinking about like the market as far as like what can we make money off this. I'm saying that as we consume a liquid to imbibe and be social, is that something that just will not jive with this type of drink?
Yeah, and that's where I was
Okay,
about to
sorry.
get to with my second. No. I appreciate the clarification, but that was the point I was going to get to. The second point. So my first point was,
Mhm.
does it limit the market from a dollar standpoint? Probably not. But does it also limit it from the consumer standpoint? That's where I compare it to uh, cocktails in a can, RTDs. You're also not going to drink 6 of those in a night the same way you're going to be drinking.
2 or 3?
Sure, and you can do 2 or 3 of these.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, you can't.
You can you
And
can.
that's the thing, like the ability to consume more of these will weigh heavily on what your recreational use or even medicinal use of pot is.
Yeah. And yeah, and so that's what I'm getting at is like you can't compare it to beer, right? You can't. Um, but if you compare it to RTDs or something else like that, people, I mean, the biggest potheads I know still don't smoke as many joints as the average cigarette smoker does.
Mhm.
You know, like
Yeah.
you can't do a pack a
Yeah.
day.
Of course.
um, and so it's very tempting to compare the two. Um, just because they're, A, consumed beverages, B, they're vices, C, they're in similar packaging. Um, but I mean,
Yeah, like I see some crossover ability here, but I know I was kind of comparing it to NA earlier, at least for my own personal thing. But I I don't think that it's going to replace that culture of beer that you're talking about, Kevin. Like that it is that such a social thing. And I mean, I knew people who socially partook in pot. Plenty of people who did. But yeah, it's in a such a
It's a
it's
different kind of
it's
social
adjacent.
experience.
Yeah, it's an adjacent neighborhood, but it's not really the same
Yeah,
neighborhood.
yeah, listen, you're participating in community when you're passing around a joint. You know what I
yep,
mean? You're
Yeah.
being by definition social in some way, shape, or form. I think it's interesting because we're talking about breweries doing these and
Yeah.
having Tim was giving an example like, oh, this place has both of these, and then you can only have one or the other. I can see like people getting dollar signs in their head, and I'm very happy that people are making money off this. But I just wonder about like when I have someone come in there, and Tim, your point is really well taken. If you charge more money for it, it doesn't matter. Like you make your margin on it. But just that vibe of like, I'm gonna go and have 3 or 4. I mean, I go out and have old fashions with a couple friends. I'm gonna have 3, 4 old fashions, and it's
sure.
just that it's repetition is kind of what I'm getting at. Like that you lose that repetition of the,
So, well,
going back and back and back.
again to Mike's point though, you drink 2 or 3 old fashions because you're used to drinking 2 or 3 old
Mhm.
fashions. You don't drink 2 or 3 of these because you're not used to drinking these. Because if I give my mom a half an old fashioned, she's not drinking anything else for the rest of the night.
That's a really good point.
You know what I
That the
mean?
Yeah.
tolerance buildup that will
Yeah.
happen. Well, that first of all, there are people that they've been taking THC for 50
Yeah.
years, so they
Yeah.
have built up a tolerance. But if with these entering the market, there are people that are drinking this. I would not, if it wasn't for this drink, I would not have had any THC for probably months and months and months.
Sure. Sure.
Right. So you're literally turning people onto a drug that they are not regularly taking. And those people, if they like it, will drink a lot of it and build up a tolerance. And so that's a really good point I didn't think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the thing because yeah, your average old fashioned drinker is 1 to 2 a night. Your average THC consumer is 1 to 2 of these a night.
Yeah.
But like I finished my 10, you finished your 5, you're feeling something, I got nothing.
I haven't even finished my 5.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I've already finished, and so that's that. Comes to those. I could probably have another one of these now. I will sleep very, very good. I'm not going to have another one of these. I might do like a 3 or 5 milligram gummy before bed. But it's one of those things where just the immaturity of the market uh, are things that were probably a problem for bars back in the day, or bars in small towns, or whatever. Anyone who's gone from a beer license to a beer, wine, and liquor license, like it all adjust. Oh, Great
Oh,
Lakes.
okay. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Tim, but Kevin just threw something up. All right. Is Great Lakes available here now? Because
No.
I just saw a truck, a Cavalier truck yesterday, wrapped in Great Lakes.
Not that I know of. I have not seen any Great Lakes beer in Florida at all. What I have and what I've been doing on my old favorite Friday is all the beers that I brought back home from Michigan.
Oh, okay.
And I did one recently with Edmund Fitzgerald, and I said, people have been saying they're going to get me Dortmunder forever, and somebody do this for me. 2 days later, a guy calls up, just called at the brewery, and says, "Yeah, I want to talk to Kevin." I'm like, "Yeah, here's Kevin speaking." He's like, "I got 3 cans. That's all I could have down here. My wife picked it up for me. I'm dropping it off at the brewery for you." So I've got 3 cans of Dortmunder Gold at the brewery. I'm going to review for the following week, Old Favorite Friday. How cool is that? Someone
Dortmunder
came
Gold.
through.
Dortmunder Gold. It doesn't always make it on it, but it often makes it on my desert island list. It's certainly a top 10 beer for me. Now, often creeps into the top 5.
Great Lakes in general. I mean, Edmund Fitzgerald's great.
Yeah. Well,
There's so many good beers.
I mean, it would make sense to be in Florida since both Ohio and Florida believe that Haitians eat dogs. So, so I think it would certainly make sense.
Well, there's a big Midwestern contingent, especially on the West Coast down here. But yeah, I would do, Mike. I'm gonna have to look into that and find out, because if they have this beer coming down here, first of all, I'll feel bad for the guy who went out of his way to get me 3 cans when it's available in stores tomorrow.
Well, I
Uh,
just searched on Total Wine's website and nothing comes up
Yeah.
for it. But I was just like driving around. I'm like, Great Lakes truck, and then I like it was way ahead of me too. So I got up close so I could get to the sides to see the door to see who the distributor was. I'm like, Cavalier. Like, okay, like did they really nab Great Lakes and Deschutes in the last couple of months? Like, but yeah, I have not heard any confirmation that Great Lakes is actually here in Florida. If anyone does know, hit us up at United We Drink on the X or wherever.
So, to tie this back to the conversation at hand, that is a whole other point. You guys are getting THC seltzers from Minnesota that you're not getting the beer from them. They're not under the alcohol distribution contracts.
Yeah.
Right? It's a completely different thing. And again, because it's not a nationally regulated thing, I don't really know that there are clear distribution arrangements. And so I could just ship you guys a case, right? Like technically,
Well, what's their Fair State has Chill State, their CB or their THC seltzers. First time that I even heard about that, I was like looking up on their website and like, we ship it to all 50 states. I'm like, how do you ship like a controlled substance like that across state lines? But yeah, that to your point, Tim, like you can order this stuff just online from the makers.
yeah, it's a completely different model. And so like, so unlike uh RTDs, and to Mike's point of it being sort of like NA, is like just the distribution model is also completely different. So I might only be able to get one state with my beer, and I could hit 50 states with, and I don't know. I don't know how like it gets into Total Wine. That part I don't know, because we only, when I was at Unmapped, we only sold it out of our tap room. Worked well enough to do that. So I'm not personally familiar with how that actually goes from a national perspective, but obviously you guys are getting Minnesota brands, and I think it's because they have not decriminalized THC nationally, but they have made it a non-prosecutable thing. Not the same thing. Distinction without a difference. But the reality is, it's a completely different model that, once again, regulation is probably going to creep into. But until there's a national regulation, I don't know that, maybe my state has regulation, but if all the other states around me don't, my state regulation kind of doesn't matter if I sell it in the other 49. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how that develops.
Especially thinking about all the problems we've had with distribution over the years, and currently a company that will not let us go without charging us thousands of dollars to get out of our contract. And they, by the way, haven't bought beer in 5 years. The idea that you could forego all that. And the one thing I always say is you do need distribution if you want to be any kind of decent size, right? You need to sign with somebody has to have those trucks, and it's probably not going to be you.
Yeah.
But giving you more flexibility in that to go in with these, soda distributors, whoever those people are. I mean, that's incredible.
I have a friend that used to work for Sprecher Brewery, and she was like, "The reality is, we're a soda company that makes beer."
Yeah,
Because
they're root beer.
Yeah.
yeah, because yeah, if you're Joe Schmo in Florida and you want to order 40 cases of root beer from them, you can get that.
Yeah.
You can't order a single beer to be delivered from them, but you can
Right.
get all the right. And so when it falls into those things, into that agreement, because it's not an alcohol, it is a vice, but it's not alcohol, and we have a lot of clear rules around alcohol because from a national level, we've had a complicated history of it, from prohibition to repeal and all of that, and all of the other things that came into that. This is just so much into its nascency that it will eventually get regulated more, but right now it's the Wild West. And so yeah, so that, to that other point of maybe I'm losing the occasion-based drinker of a guy who wants to have 3 or 4. But if I've broadened my ability to get my product out to consumer base, maybe I don't care that I've lost 100 multi-drink drinkers because I gained 1,000 single-use drinkers all over.
Yeah.
Yeah. One quick thing, just to let Kevin know. Apparently, these have been legal to sell in Florida since 2018. Thanks to actually a farm bill that made it legal for hemp-derived products to be sold in here. But I mean, these products didn't really become a thing until the last couple years, really, with actual sales going on down here.
Tim,
It's
Because we don't have legal recreational here. It's on the ballot. Vote yes on 3. But yeah.
I mean, I think so much of the early regulation around weed was serious regulation, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can't go into, last time I bought weed in Colorado, I had to go through multiple doors and show IDs and stuff like that, right?
Mhm.
The last time I bought gummies up here was I picked up half a gallon of milk at the local bodega and went, "Oh, also can you go ahead and give me uh, uh some of those gummies?" Like it's that casual of a
wow.
yeah. There's no. I mean,
Are those actual cannabis or are those Delta 9?
they're Delta 9, but
Okay,
still.
so that's why you can get gummy stuff like that in a store down here too.
Well, you
You
could always do
can?
but
Yeah.
you could always do Delta 8. The way these things were snuck through the
Or
farm
maybe
bill
that's
is these people doing the Delta 9s. And that's where, again, you guys
Okay.
might have gone through the similar thing where you were updating a farm bill for hemp-derived products, and someone didn't read, and they accidentally legalized a psychoactive substance versus a non-psychoactive substance.
I have to ask this. So, Mike, how you can get, okay, let me start with this. the variant of THC that you guys are talking about that is in these drinks that is it identical to what is in cannabis? It's the identical THC or is it different? And when you're talking about 8 versus 9, are some of them they don't have effects on you or what?
You've been able to do in a lot of places hemp-derived Delta 8 because it does not have the psychoactive effects of
Okay.
Delta 9.
So okay.
And Delta 8 is actually federally legal as of 2021
Correct.
that I'm reading here.
In
Yeah,
Delta 9 though, is that is it identical to that what's in cannabis?
well, it's cannabis, but as far as what you get in
Well,
weed,
it's not cannabis. It's hemp, but it
What's the
is
difference?
well, it's yeah. But the
yeah, I'm trying to like read some of the stuff at the same time
yeah,
as talking, but
it's not
it's a very similar type of reaction from
correct.
marijuana, like cannabis, uh, THC.
So it's slightly different in some minuscule way. It's slightly
It's the
different.
same but completely different. Uh,
I don't know why I'm fixated on this, but
What
I just try to understand.
because you're high and you just want to
what
fixate on one thing.
what I will say is it's
Let's
funny.
talk art films next.
So I used to date a woman who was originally from Michigan, and when she would go back to Michigan to visit family, she would get real, cannabis derived gummies, not hemp derived gummies. And she used to always make fun of Delta 9 and it's not real and this stuff is real. And I remember the last time she and I got high, she thought she was taking her Michigan gummies, but she was taking Minnesota gummies. Like, there are a lot of people who think, I mean, well, it's like with literally anything, right? Like food, wine, whatever. Where I don't know that it's really the case that they claim it to be.
Well, I can tell you that the feeling I have right now is identical to to the feeling the last time I had gummies. Now that my mind's been blown that these exist and there's a Delta 8 and a Delta 9, uh, I probably I'm projecting on my past, but I'm definitely starting to feel a very similar effect.
amazed that the government hasn't cracked down on your use of caffeine with these, right? Because they've cracked down on the amount of caffeine that can be in a coffee beer.
Yeah.
Right? That's why some of these other beer energy drinks got banned.
Yeah.
When your average coffee beer doesn't have enough caffeine to hit that, but when you're doing like a Four Loko type of thing, they start to crack down. I'm kind of surprised they haven't done that. People aren't already more up in arms with that because there are a lot of THC drinks that I've noticed lately that have like a pretty high dose of caffeine in them as well.
Oh yeah, that sounds awful. And like, ugh.
I don't know. So one of my favorite breweries close is 9 Mile. My friend John is the head brewer, and the first time I went in there, and he's like, "Hey Tim, I'm gonna send you home with a 4-pack of our THC seltzers. It's gonna be 2 and 2." He's like, "If this one you want to mellow out, relax, and get a really good night's sleep, drink these. If you want to be, hey, I'm gonna be productive as shit, drink these." And he was not kidding, because that weekend I took the productive as shit. I did more things around my house that afternoon that I had the 6 months prior. Like I was rearranging my kitchen. I was, all my vacuum places that hadn't been vacuumed in forever. I was like putting shit away. It was all types of stuff that one. And then the next night I was like, man, I just want to relax, and I was probably asleep within like 5 minutes. So like, because all this hemp derived is not like there's not a difference between like indica and sativa uh with this hemp derived stuff, and so it all generally has a mellowing effect, and I think that's why you've seen a lot of this stuff with the caffeine.
Uppers
All
and
very interesting.
downers. But so let me ask you this, Kevin. Where do you see yourself potentially keeping this on hand in your house? Do you think that it has a place in your life?
I don't know. Possibly. I mean, I bought a lot of this because I wanted to try at least 2 different things, and then this, anyway, the Magic Trail looked almost professional to me. I saw a lot of, like, really stupid looking cans, and I was like, "Oh, this looks like, someone thought about this in advance." Um, but because I have all of this and I didn't really understand the milligrams or anything before, I I've got plenty to experiment with over the next month and see if I wanna drink this on a regular basis.
Let me know how baseball feels while having some of those.
I was watching the score of the Tigers game near the start of the podcast before I started to feel stoned, so I just kinda missed out on some interaction with baseball and these. I
Tim, like, are these a part of your like fridge? Are these things that I mean, I feel like you've had them on the show once or twice before.
I have had some of these on the show before. They're not in my fridge as much as beer. And part of that just goes back to like what I was talking about with getting acclimated and I've been a beer drinker a lot longer than I've been a THC drinker, at least. And
Mhm.
and again, my previous experiences with THC um before seltzers became common, or even before gummies became common, it was you go to the arboretum and smoke a bowl with your friend, and then you go off and do your thing. You're not just sitting there doing one after another after another after another, unless you're trying to kill yourself. But they are in my fridge more often than they certainly are in your guys's. But even with the amount that I can take, I'm still often just a one as a nightcap. It
Uh,
is more right.
I can definitely see that that purpose, like because yeah, we've talked about in the NA episode about using NA beers for a nightcap when you want to like cut down on your alcohol intake. And
Yep.
like the thing that I'm, at least this is how I'm rationalizing it in my own mind, is what I was saying earlier. I'm trying to cut down on the amount of alcohol that I consume. I like some of the effects that you get from it, and these look like a way to fill in some of those gaps, and to where I am not having alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm getting a little bit of an effect.
Mm-hmm.
It is and considerably less calories than a beer. So it's yeah, I'm looking at it as a place to fill in some gaps, and while
Yeah.
feeling like I'm doing something nicer for my body's health. And but I see these like maybe like a 6 pack at a time, probably sitting in my fridge for like a month or something like that.
Yeah, they're definitely more slower than me than beer. Um, I like what you said about like still feeling some effects, because like there are some people. I've never. This is my bias. I've never been like melatonin has never worked for me, right? But people that talk about all these other sleep aids, I always want to be like, if you don't feel an effect from your sleep aid, uh, then is it working? And so for something like THC as a sleep aid, you do want to feel an effect, right? It's not every drug we consume has an effect, right? A painkiller makes us feel something different than what we're feeling. They're all about that. And so there's something weird about, I think it's still just lingering stigma with these things, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, the idea that you have one before bed, great. Again, it's a different. All drinking is occasion based,
Yeah.
and this is no
Whether
different.
it's a mundane occasion or not.
Yeah, right. I don't drink wine on the golf course with my buddies. I
Philistine.
What?
I'm not drinking absinthe at a wedding reception. I like It's just all these different.
How are we friends? Like,
I don't drink mead in a hot tub.
I think. Can you keep going?
but all of these things are occasion based, right? And I think that's kind of what I'm getting at.
I don't
But
drink meat in a hot tub. That has to be on a shirt.
well,
we have one.
I was gonna say,
On our store, we have jacuzzi mead shirts still available there.
yes.
So, anything else that you want to say, just to wrap up your thoughts on THC beverages, Kevin?
No, I mean, I'm surprised at how much I didn't know about this and learned a lot by talking with you guys about it. This is this has been the most interesting podcast to me, maybe ever. The rest of it I don't care about because
Is the
it's us talking.
THC saying that?
Probably.
You know what else is super interesting? My hand. Have you looked at it?
Have you ever done a podcast about THC on weed?
What if this podcast is really just the subject of someone else's podcast? And someone else is having a podcast about a podcast about a podcast.
We're all in a snow globe, man. What show was that? Was that No, that wasn't Dallas. I don't. One of those shows from the '80s that had like some weird stuff going on, and they revealed at the end that it was all in like a snow globe.
Oh, what, St. Elsewhere?
Yes, that's. Wait.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it was
There
all
we
a
go.
dream like Newhart.
Oh, that's one of the best like endings ever.
Especially with his real wife. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was the best. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think like I said, I know breweries that really the only thing keeping the lights on right now is this stuff. I know breweries where they are basically not a brewery anymore. Obviously that's a get it hot while it can. Like this is sort of, one of those things until the consumer appropriate regulations. Don't pretend like I'm saying it should be a Wild West free for all forever. But once all of those things kind of catch up, that was what was different about like trends like Mike's Hard Lemonade or seltzer or thing. And not that seltzer's gone away, but the idea is that they were still already operating within a confined and defined space, and this is still just so out there. It's so unique to any other beverage scenario that we have had until now. Because who regulates my soda? The federal government. Who regulates my beer? The federal government. Who regulates my wine? The federal government. Who regulates my coffee? The federal government. Who regulates my THC? Not the federal government. Right? It is still just kind of a unique space that anything that I have already said on this podcast will be out of date in 6 months.
I was going to say by the time that this episode comes out, Barrel of Monks will have released their first THC seltzer.
Quite possibly with the turnaround time you talked about earlier, Tim.
Yeah.
But what about the monks in the barrel? What are they feeling?
I don't want to even start to brainstorm names for that brand, but
Barrel of
all right.
Danks. Anyway,
let's head into last calls, point in the show where we give each other an unspecific amount of time to talk about whatever it is that we want, beverage related, not beverage related. I'll kick things off here. New show that I really like and want to recommend to you, and by new, it's new to me. Show called Dark Winds on AMC. It is a very people have called it a true detective-ish type of show. It's a mystery cop show, but it is based on in a Navajo reservation with tribal police, and it's not a anthology type of thing, but they have 2 seasons out. Really great cast, all native writers in their writer room. A lot of course, native actors, which this just reminds me back to Reservation Dogs, and how much they really helped native workers in the entertainment business and really showcased their skills as people on crews, writing, acting, and all of that. And I feel like this does some of that too. They share an actor, and what's his name? Zane McLaren. Um, uh, my apologies for messing that up, but he's the cop in Reservation Dogs, and he's a cop in this show. Uh, Zane McLaren. There we go. But yeah, awesome mystery show. A third season's going to be coming in a few months, but I really enjoy it. Kevin?
So I think about a year ago, somewhere around there, I was talking about how my son had started playing baseball, and we were playing an I-9, which is kind of it's the sports league down here that is less competitive. A lot of enthusiasm from the coaches. They stress like just we're just learning fundamentals. We're just learning about the game, and we don't have to be out here kind of treating these kids with like way more intensity than necessary. And it was great. And I actually ended up coaching my son's team, which was wonderful, and I had a great time doing it. Just kind of a dream of mine, right? Because my dad coached my teams and all that stuff. But now we've moved on to West Boca baseball, and in this league, my son is currently 6.5 years old. The coaches there are great guys. They're they're out there doing their best. I'm happy they're out there. We need volunteers, but they are so intense, and the way that they kind of relate to the kids, there's no smiling, there's no enthusiasm. It is basically like they are talking to, a guy that works the plant with them, and how they're telling my son like how to like change his swing and do these little things. And it I have such a hard time with that because I started playing baseball when I was 8 years old, and there was so much more enthusiasm from the coaches, and it wasn't like this is such a big deal. My baseball teams when I was in little league lost every single game like our first 2 years, and I still loved it. It was wonderful. Uh, and I worry so much, and as the parents at these little practices are saying like, "Oh, my kid didn't win any games this last year. He's gonna win them this year. This better be a good team." And they're talking about like how much time they're putting into practicing baseball with their 6 and 7-year-olds. I am just this is not what I want out of baseball and sports, especially at this age. I understand if they get, much older and you're in high school and you're getting scouted by colleges. I get that. But treating these kids like wins and losses are everything before they even understand which side first base is on, right? Is way too much. It's way too much. So if you're out there, if you feel like me, please. Uh, I and I've lost my train of thought. That's the perfect end to that.
Perfect.
Jesus Christ.
Tim?
Uh, so I recently changed careers yet again because that's what I do. Um, well, what I will say is I spent last week at the home office, and our company's maybe 70 employees, 70 to 100 employees. And obviously, I've worked at breweries where there's like 4 employees, and I've worked at, you know, Best Buy where there were 10,000 employees at corporate alone, let alone all the store employees and all of that. So I've been all over the map, and I've gone through a lot of different kind of like culture things, whether that be a formal like all the mission, vision, values, all the type of things where you drink the Kool-Aid, and I've been to like where we don't do any type of who are we, what are we at all, like various levels of maturity. And I really like what I like about this company is it's kind of a very good blend of the leaders recognize that the most important thing that a leader does, the number one most important thing that a leader does, it rallies others around the vision of a better future. At the end of the day, your job as a leader is say we are here. We want to be here. Let's all agree about what it takes to get there. And a lot of times that does require a certain amount of people have to buy into culture because you're not going to ever all aspire to the same thing if you're not part of the same culture. And I don't mean like, socioeconomic cultures. I don't mean geopolitical cultures. I don't mean ethnic cultures, but each company has a culture. And when leaders do a good job of teaching people what they hope the culture is, half a culture is what leadership models and shows. The other half is what employees actually do. So the closer you can get what employees actually do to what leadership models and shows, that's important. And I think the thing that was amazing about my time at headquarters was that I felt like there was a good balance between what employees do and what leadership wants without that culty feeling that I always got at like Best Buy. Without feeling like I was drinking the Jim Jones Kool-Aid. Because it was a sincere form of leadership. You don't have to be bureaucratic to be a mature, developed company. You don't have to be too corporate to still have some of the certain mature levels of leadership. And I feel like, particularly in the brewing industry, I feel like they're so DIY, they're so young, and they're so whatever that they miss that. Man, I wish most owners just stayed the fuck out of the brew house and just went into who we are as a brand and what we want to be. And so it's very refreshing to me to be able to find a balance between providing all of that without weighing me down with bureaucracy. And I wish more people. I feel like everyone should always have to do a stint at a large company to understand, uh, and a stint in a small company to understand the best of both worlds. So I'm rambling now at this point, but uh, TLDR, I really enjoy working in a company with good leadership. Super obvious.
All right. Tim, you want to plug anything?
You know what? My friend is the CMO for Fuzzy's Tacos, which is a national taco brand that I've only actually recently discovered. But he used to be the vice president of bar and beverage for Applebee's. Buddy of mine, really funny. Oh, what the hell? I'll give him a shout. Go eat some Fuzzy's Tacos.
I am unfamiliar with the brand. Kevin, have you ever heard of Fuzzies?
Say,
No.
are you concerned with the implications of the name?
No. Oh, Kevin?
What?
He's too high to understand what's going on. The schnozberries
oh,
taste like schnozberries to him right now, so it's fine.
let's see. They do have location. Oh, all Central and West Coast Florida. Okay. Yeah, maybe next time I'm in Tampa.
For national chain tacos, I really do. And for a podcast that used to ask people what their Taco Bell order was,
We did used to do that. That was a thing.
I will say that they do actually, he and I were both experienced with Rusty Taco, which is the national brand that Buffalo Wild Wings had purchased, which is also not a great name. But I will say that for a national brand, I'm gonna totally be a corporate shill for the rest of this episode, just because I want Patrick to do well.
Kevin, do you want to plug anything?
No.
Perfect. Oh man. One real quick story. Before I started trying some of these THC uh beverages, the last time that I got high was with Kevin and Joel and all of our significant others at Universal Studios.
And you
um,
worry about being in the backcountry high. Oh my goodness. I'm going to make way worse decisions at Universal Studios high.
I can't remember if it was you or Joel brought cookies, and it wasn't
us.
you then. Then it was
No.
Joel. And we had them earlier, and I remember Kevin and I just being nonverbal for like an hour and a half. Like we were good, and then it like all took over. It was just like smiling and nodding and going on rides. Like, you coming on this one, Kevin? All right. You guys want something to eat? Yeah. Yeah.
I went to the first GABF after we got legalized in Denver.
I don't remember if I was at that. I think I was at that one.
Okay.
Is that the one where you saw Joel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe. I think so. Anyway,
From-
I just remember that the Brewers area had a very different vibe that year than any other year I went.
Actually, you know what? I don't think that was right after legalization.
I was saying, no, yeah,
I
that
was
one wasn't it. Yeah.
I was
thinking
at
about that.
CBC with Kevin before that GABF, and weed was legalized then. And I've told the story on the show before, so you just got to
Probably
find that
several
in the
times.
archives.
But
Yeah.
that has to be like the top time you've ever been stoned in your life.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
that time in Colorado.
Yeah.
That's funny.
If you want to follow me at Mike Loves Beer on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads, I'm on there too. If you want to follow the show, you can follow us at United We Drink on Twitter. We're at United We Drink Pod on Instagram and Threads. We're also at United We Drink on Blue Sky, where all of a sudden we started getting a whole bunch of followers from what seems like legitimate people. So if you've joined us from Blue Sky, how the fuck did you find out about us? And thank you. If you want to support our show, go to our website, unitedwedrink.com, and check out the Brands We Love page. We have some awesome stuff there, such as Made in Cookware, Trade Coffee, the American Homebrewers Association, stuff that you sign up through them, and we get a little kickback from it, and you support our show. We also have our web store, unitedwedrink.com/store, with shirts, buttons, stickers, totes, and all that other fun stuff. We will be back in a couple weeks. We'll have a guest on that episode, and I'm looking forward to that. For everyone here, chill, man.
Cheers, guys.